Hiya friends, Prepared Suburbanite back at you after pretty much a 6-month hiatus from creating any content here on YouTube. And there's a lot of reasons that I took that hiatus from YouTube. But for all those folks that have been sending me emails and commenting on previous videos, worried about us and worried about any health issues and all that, I just want to say that we are alive and well, very well, as a matter of fact. So let me get into a couple of details about what we've been up to and what precipitated my decision to hold off on producing any new YouTube content. So stick around. YouTube used to be, when I first started this channel, a place where we could share thoughts and ideas and make a couple of bucks here and there, just enough to, at least from my perspective, enough to cover the cost of production, which is, you know, having a decent camera, good microphone, some editing software, that kind of stuff. I never really went crazy with that, but it was not unusual in the very beginning, once I got past 1,000 subscribers or so, to get 500 to 1,000 views within the first 24 to 48 hours of publishing a video. And depending on the content, it could, I've had a couple that surpassed 100,000 and probably one or two that have surpassed 200,000 views. Not that all that great, but to say that I was able to at least cover expenses for the production and all that, and maybe make a buck or two, it really wasn't any much more than that. And as time went on and as YouTube algorithms really began changing, I noticed that once I got up over 20,000 subscribers, that the reach just wasn't there. I'd publish a video and get maybe 100 views in the first 8 hours or so, and in the first 24 hours I might get 250 or maybe 400 or 500 views on a single video. Well, that's only going to make you about $3. So you got to do that a lot. So I started doing them like every day. And yeah, that helped a little bit. It sort of increased a little bit of the exposure. But there were a few videos that I did that were I guess censored or not necessarily fully demonetized, but they just didn't end up on people's feeds. So it was really holding down the viewership that I was getting. And of course you all know that you have to be very careful about what you say on YouTube and how you say it and what words you use. You can't use certain technical words for getting one of those. So you got to be very, very careful about what you say and how you say it. And that really started bothering me. But one of the trends that I noticed during the last year and a half to 2 years was that there were so many super professional podcasters that were jumping into the YouTube environment and really doing a great job. I mean, they've got beautiful studios, they've got state-of-the-art camera equipment and microphone and lighting and all kinds of cool stuff that they use, and they can make a big impression on folks. So I would think that given that kind of competition, that if you can see something that's very well professionally produced rather than some guy out in his backyard that's what you're going to do. And I think that had quite a lot to do with it. And as I look around, you see folks that I've been following for a long, long time, pinball and the homesteader guys and all that kind of stuff, and they got to a peak of subscribership and then just kind of leveled right off over the last year. And it's been kind of disheartening to see all that. The other underlying reason, I guess, is that I decided to step back is the rude and nasty comments that pop up from the community. Yeah, I run through and I read all the comments, and honestly, if they're truly insulting, they're using foul language, all that kind of stuff, they just disappear, those comments do. But because you read them, you see what people are thinking. And I did a video a while ago about updating our get home bags that we carry in our Jeep. And one of the comments was, well, at your age, why should it matter? Well, yeah, okay, so I'm over 70 years old, and it does matter because I care about me and I care about my family being prepared all the time. So, but that comment really, really hurt. At your age, why bother? And there's a few others that popped up over time that it just kind of, maybe I'm just too sensitive, but I find it hard to laugh at those kind of people or just slough them off and say, oh, it doesn't really matter, because they're speaking their heart. They're speaking truisms. So with that said, those are some of the reasons that I put YouTube on hiatus. I'm back now, going to start doing a few YouTube videos from time to time, but I wanted to now talk about what we've been doing over the last 6 months. So for those that have been around for a while, remember that we had a very loyal and loving dog. It was a golden retriever mix. We called her Kelly. She was a surrender from an elderly woman who couldn't really take care of a dog anymore, so she surrendered the dog to a local rescue, and we ended up adopting that dog a number of years ago. I think she was maybe 6 or 7 when we got her, and she lived to the ripe old age of 16, and we lost her about 16 months ago. And it was a very sad day for us. She apparently had a stroke and she couldn't function anymore. And we took her to the vet, and he just said, well, there's not much we can do. And that's about it. So she was 16 when she went. We took a break from owning a dog for a few, months, I guess. Yeah, probably 3 or 4 months. And I saw an ad pop up locally about a Labrador retriever that was looking to be rehomed very close by to where we live. So we got in contact with the family, went over, visited the dog, talked to the owners, and the dog seemed to be pretty much okay. Still young, probably less than a year old, but very energetic, seemed to be a real pleasant dog to be with, smart, attentive, food motivated, so should have been easily trained and all that. Well, we did adopt that dog and took it to the vet. And got a great checkup there. Everything was fine. Got all the shots and did all that kind of stuff. So we spent a few bucks on that. Go to the local pet store and pick up the right kind of food and a few toys and this and that. And so there you go. Well, it turns out that this dog was so high energy that we just had to keep a constant eye on her all the time. We've got on our back deck, it's a full story up from the ground level. So it's probably 10, 12 feet from the railing down to the ground. And this dog jumped from one of the chairs on the deck and jumped right over the railing and down onto the thing. Well, she was a little dazed when she hit the ground, but got her back in, tried to get her calmed down, and from about that point on, she just was a wild man, totally crazy. I first described her as being a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And we worked with her for week after week, took her to a training thing for an assessment. And after the first 3 or 4 weeks, she seemed to improve, at least to the point where she was just a velociraptor instead of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And a couple more weeks of working with her and all that, she actually improved to the stage where she was a mountain lion. And very, very energetic, wanting to go all the time, never really taking the time to sit down and relax and all that. Seemed to like us, but so energetic that we just couldn't continue to handle her anymore. Excuse me. One particular day, I was sitting on the couch watching TV. The dog walked into the living room and saw me sitting there and said, "Oh boy, let's play." And she jumped from halfway across the room right up onto my thing with her mouth wide open, and her teeth hit right here and here. I don't think she meant to bite. She was just so excited about an opportunity to play that she was just so much out of control. And I said, well, I don't want to go spend a whole lot more money on training and all that kind of stuff. Let's see if we can rehome this dog. So after we had her about almost 3 months, we decided to rehome her. My wife got in touch with a local rescue placement kind of a service, and within a few days found a suitable person willing to adopt, understanding the situation, and off they went. And that was it for that. Took a couple weeks off in between that, and got in touch with the folks at our Golden Retriever rescue group here in town, and they said, "Oh, we've got a couple of dogs you can choose from. We've got a male over here, we got a female over there." And I said, "Well, let me take the female," just as a kind of a foster situation. So we went, we picked up the dog, met her, seemed to be calm, cool, and collected, very excited to meet new people and all that kind of stuff. Brought her home and went through the adjustment thing for the first week or so, and she kind of got used to where her crate was and where her food was, and what the routine was going to be about going out to the potty and all that. And she was a super potty trained already. I think she was 3 years old. Golden something mix, a hound maybe, but very short hair. Anyway, within the first 10 days or so, she started to get very protective of her space. And she would snarl her teeth and put her head down and kind of come at you a little bit like that. And I thought, well, hey, what's going on? So we got in touch with the trainer person at the rescue crew, and she came out, Worked with the dog a little bit, gave us a bunch of tips on what we should be doing, and probably the next day after she had left, the dog did it again, bared her teeth and growled and snarling and being very aggressive, very protective of her little space there. And I just said, we're not going to do that anymore. You sit, boom. That was it. She never did it to me ever again. And she never did it to my wife at all, even from the very beginning. So once we got past that, it was okay. Now can we, as you go through the fostering thing, my idea was either adopt or get the dog ready so that she could be adopted by someone who would understand. So we kept her here. And as you know, I've got a family that, 2 daughters and 4 grandkids around here. My sister lives close by. And we get together about once a month over here and do a cookout or whatever. And that first time we did it, I think it was, could have been Easter Sunday. The dog was just, her name was Ivy. The dog was just beside herself. She was very protective, but we kept her in her cage. She just kind of stared at people very cautiously all the time they were there. I took her out during the visitation there for, it was probably 3 or 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours. And she was sort of okay, but wasn't real happy. The next time we had the family come over, we decided to try to give her a little bit more freedom, and she went right back to that very protective stance and trying to protect everything with her teeth bared. And she stared down my daughter, she stared down my grandson's girlfriend, she stared down my sister, she stared down my sister's friend. So it was like, okay, put her back in the cage, that's it, we're not going to do that anymore. And so it takes a long time. So we had the trainer come back out a few days later to try to work with her a little bit on socialization, getting her to get used to other people and other dogs and stuff like that. And that was not a very successful get-together because the trainer put her face down to adjust the collar on her on the leash, and the dog jumped right up at her. And she said, whoa, we can't be doing that. So she said, what we got to do is this, and what we got to do is that, and work with her some more, and I'll take her away from this very familiar environment and put her into some areas that she may not be all that familiar with. See how she does with a very well-trained dog and all that kind of stuff. Well, okay, so a week ago, she got loose. And off she went. I followed her down the driveway and out onto the road and into the neighbor's backyard and around, and she wouldn't come, she wouldn't listen. She just, the more she ran around in circles and sniffed things around, the more excited she got. Tried to get her corralled at the next neighbor's house, and their young fella that lives there came out, and he had a box of treats, milk bone, dog bones, and I walked past the kid and I said, she does not like people, so be very careful. And down the street they went. My wife's walking along trying to catch up, and another couple with a dog on a leash started walking down the street, and they stopped, and my dog went over to them, and that gave the opportunity for the neighbor to reach down and grab the dog, get a hold of the collar, and she came right up and bit him right in the face. Man, he had blood running down here, all down his shirt and everything. So he's trying to hold her down. My wife reaches in to grab that collar, does get a hold of the collar, but the dog tried to bite her and missed. So I could tell that my wife was a little agitated about all what was going on, looking at the blood pouring down the neighbor's face. And so I reached down to relieve my wife and grabbed the dog's collar, and she hauled off and bit me a good one. About tore my thumbnail right off and hurt like the dickens, I'll tell you that. So grabbed the leash, got her hooked back up, brought her in the house, got in touch with the rescue people and said, we can't have this. She's a bite risk now for sure. And we had to take her back to the veterinarian's office, where we picked her up and surrendered her back to the rescue people. And we just found out yesterday that she has to go through a 10-day period of monitoring for the bite, kind of a thing, to make sure that me and my neighbor are going to be protected in case there was rabies involved. But she was all up to date on all her shots and all that. So we'll see how that goes. I suspect that when that 10 days is up, that she'll end up having to be euthanized and sent off to doggy heaven or wherever the bad dogs go. But that's been my wonderful experience with fostering dogs for the last few weeks. And other than that, our garden turned out to be a semi-failure this year. The peas did sort of okay, but nothing else really turned out very well at all. The plum crop from this year's trees, just terrible, absolutely terrible. So we got some green beans coming. We got maybe a dozen or so tomato plants that are sort of coming along. Got a few little things here and there, but certainly not what I was hoping for this year. So that's what we've been up to. Like to hear what you're all up to, and I want you to make sure that you be prepared and stay prepared always. This is the Prepared Suburbanite saying bye for now.